With that, Chairman recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank all the witnesses for being here today, especially the victims that have had guts.
Go ahead, Louis. Thank you. I'm sorry about that, Lou. Thank you to our co-chairs for spearheading this hearing today. Truly delighted to be here to hear from our witnesses. I want to thank each of you for being here today and for having the humility and vulnerability to testify. Thank you so much. As a mother, a daughter, and a sister, this issue is deeply personal to me. The fear of a loved one going missing and being exploited is unimaginable. And it is our responsibility to ensure authorities have the tools they need to prevent trafficking and protect victims, especially during large-scale events. Human trafficking, as been mentioned multiple times on this dais today, is a horrific crime that affects all of our communities. It is particularly horrific because the victims are often among the most vulnerable people in society: minorities, immigrants, children, and people of color. I want to talk a little bit about the impact of human trafficking for Black Americans. Black women and girls are among the most vulnerable populations in the United States. In fact, while only around 12% of the U.S. population is Black, the victims and survivors of sex trafficking are 40% Black. These numbers raise important questions about the victimization and the criminalization of Black women and girls. Ms. Vafa, I want to go to you because I know you have written about this issue. Could you walk us through some of the reasons Black girls in particular are being victimized, trafficked, and re-victimized through the criminal justice system?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. Rights for Girls has written extensively about this topic. We offer numerous trainings on this topic as well. We have to understand the sex trade in the United States today as a legacy of this nation's longstanding history of racialized and gendered violence. It stems directly from colonization and the transatlantic slave trade, and understanding it as part of that longstanding history where sex trafficking was one of the first things that happened as a result of colonization and the trafficking and enslavement of indigenous women and girls, followed closely by the trafficking that happened as a result of transatlantic slavery and, for example, the fancy girl trade, which is one of the earliest documented instances of sex trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of Black women and even young men who were sold explicitly for sexual exploitation in this country. We have to understand that much of the conditions that we see today in the sex trade are an extension of that history, and that generations, hundreds of years of normalizing the commodification of Black and brown, predominantly female bodies for male profit and pleasure have really created the conditions that we see today. So we have many of these fact sheets on our websites and in our report. Basically, any jurisdiction that you look at across the country today, we see a glaring overrepresentation of predominantly Black and Indigenous women and girls. But to use one example, we can submit this further for the record. King County, which is the area around Seattle, Washington, we know that Black people are 7% of the population, but they represent 44% of child trafficking victims. In that same jurisdiction, where white people are 66% of the population, sex buyers are 73% white men. Wow. So just to give you a sense of that disproportionality, we've also collected this data to disaggregate these types of disparities across the country. What really adds to this injustice is that, to your point, Black women and girls are overrepresented amongst those who are criminalized for their exploitation. We call this the sexual abuse to prison pipeline in our work and advocacy. Trafficking is one manifestation of this abuse to prison pipeline. And Black girls in particular are affected through different forms of intersectional biases, predominantly what's known as adultification bias. And this is a documented form of implicit bias. The Georgetown Law Center on Gender Justice and Opportunity has documented this in a report called Girlhood Interrupted. But it's been shown that young Black girls receive many of the same stereotypes that are often attributed to Black women, again, stemming from colonization and slavery, around them being seen as promiscuous, seductive, angry, defiant. They're projected onto Black girls, and as a result, through this research that Georgetown conducted, Black girls are seen as less innocent and much older than their white peers, and when they experience sexual abuse and sex trafficking, they're seen as less traumatized by that abuse and, in fact, complicit in that abuse. And so subsequent research has shown that they're more likely to be deemed as offenders than victims of crime. And so there's research to support this, but that is a very quick overview of that trajectory.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I heard like inhale, exhale up here while you were delivering some of that data. Truly thankful for your expertise and you sharing that research and that data with many of us here. I want to thank each of you once again for being here and for sharing your testimony. And with that, I'm going to be respectful to the 5-minute time, and I'm going to yield back.
No, thank you. And thank you for calling attention to that racial disparity. I was not aware of that as well.